She was left to die in a hospital emergency waiting room 1 year ago today.
Will not receive any form of medical attention for nearly a day.
We don't treat animals like that.
I'm appalled. I mean, it is shocking.
It is something that could have happened to any of us.
June 19, 2008, Brooklyn, New York. A woman collapses in a hospital emergency waiting room. She lies face down on the floor. For nearly an hour, staff walk past her. Some glance inside. Some even wheel their chairs closer for a better look. But nobody helps. By the time anyone checks, it's too late. The patient is dead. Her name was Esmin Elizabeth Green. She was 49 years old, and the haunting surveillance footage of her final hours shocked the world. In this video, we'll uncover who Esmin Green was, why she was in the hospital that night, how staff ignored her, even as cameras recorded everything, the shocking cover-up attempt that followed, and how her death exposed systemic neglect in psychiatric emergency care. Stay with me until the end, because the truth behind this case is even darker than the video that went viral. Esmin Green was born in Jamaica, the eldest of 13 children. After her mother died, she took responsibility for her younger siblings. She later became a mother herself, raising 6 children while also running small businesses. By the late 1990s, Esmin moved to New York City to provide better opportunities for her family. In Brooklyn, she worked as a caregiver for the elderly in daycare centers and stayed active in her church. Friends describe her as kind, deeply religious, and devoted to her children. But by 2007, Esmin's mental health began to deteriorate. She was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Her condition brought long episodes of depression, confusion, and paranoia. During this period, she was repeatedly admitted to Kings County Hospital Center in Brooklyn. Kings County had a psychiatric emergency ward known as CPP, the Comprehensive Psychiatric Emergency Program. But this was no place of healing. A year before Esmin's death, a lawsuit described the ward as a chamber of filth, decay, indifference, and danger. On the night of June 18th, Esmin's condition worsened. She was restless, pacing, and telling her pastor that her soul was in trouble. By early morning, police and emergency staff brought her to Kings County Hospital's Psychiatric Emergency Ward. She was admitted around 6:30 a.m., changed into a hospital gown, and left in the waiting area. Her file listed her as high priority. Doctors ordered tests, including blood work and an EKG, an electrocardiogram, a test of the heart's electrical activity. But none were ever done. Over the next 24 hours, Esmin sat in the waiting room. She was never given her prescribed medications. She was barely monitored. Her vital signs were not recorded. And despite being ordered for a full medical exam, no doctor ever examined her. Instead, she was ignored. At 5:32 a.m. on June 19th, surveillance cameras captured Esmin sitting in a chair in the waiting room. She looked up at the television. She shifted in her seat. And then, suddenly, her body went limp. She slid from the chair and collapsed face down on the floor. For the next 30 minutes, she lay motionless. At one point, her body convulsed, violent spasms shaking her left leg. Then she went still. Hospital staff walked by. Security guards looked directly into the room. One even wheeled his chair to the doorway, stared at Esmin lying on the floor, and then rolled away. Not one of them tried to help. By 6:35 a.m., nearly an hour later, a nurse finally entered the room. She nudged Esmin's body with her foot. When she didn't respond, the code team was called. But by then, it was too late. At 7:10 a.m., Esmin Green was pronounced dead. What happened next would make this tragedy even worse. Instead of admitting their failure, staff at Kings County began to falsify records. Nurses wrote progress notes claiming they had observed Esmin awake, and well, even at times when video proved she was lying dead on the floor. Vital signs were recorded that had never been taken. Doctors entered notes stating Esmin had gone to the bathroom or appeared stable, when cameras showed she had not moved. The truth was written into her chart, but only after she was already gone. And hospital staff believed nobody would ever know, but they were wrong. The entire incident had been recorded by surveillance cameras. The footage showing Esmin collapse, convulse, and die as staff ignored it was later released to the media. It shocked New York. And then it shocked the world. Community leaders called it a crime of neglect. One said, "We don't treat animals like that. To see another human being left to die, it is systemic throughout this country and has to be addressed." Another said, "The only one there for her was a TV camera. If not for that camera, no one would know what happened." If this footage had never surfaced, Esmin's story might have been buried forever. If you believe these hidden crimes must be exposed, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video. Because the more people who see stories like this, the harder they are to ignore. After the video surfaced, the outrage was immediate. New York's Department of Investigation launched a probe into Kings County Hospital. They began interviewing staff, reviewing records, and comparing them against the surveillance footage. What they found was shocking. Nurses fabricated notes. One nurse claimed she had observed Esmin at 6 a.m., describing her as fine. But the video showed Esmin face down on the floor at that exact time. Vital signs were invented. Charts showed that Esmin's blood pressure and pulse had been measured after her collapse. In reality, no such checks were ever performed. Doctors' notes were inconsistent. Some wrote that Esmin was stable or had used the bathroom around the time she was dying on the floor. Others repeated false nursing notes word for word. In total, investigators identified a pattern of falsification, neglect, and cover-up. Several staff members, including nurses and a nursing aide, later admitted to fabricating parts of her medical records. Others invoked their Fifth Amendment, right against self-incrimination. It was undeniable. Esmin Green had been ignored in life and misrepresented in death. The New York City Medical Examiner determined that Esmin died of a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot that had traveled from her leg to her lungs. This was especially haunting, because earlier that day, a doctor had filled out a risk assessment for blood clots in Esmin's chart. He scored her as low risk, but he later admitted he had never examined her. Instead, he relied on old records and a glance down the hallway. Had she been properly examined, simple interventions could have saved her life. Anti-clotting medication, compression stockings, encouragement to walk around. Instead, she was left immobile, untreated, and unmonitored until clot killed her. The video made Esmin's final moments impossible to deny. She had collapsed in plain view of staff. She had convulsed on the floor for 5 minutes. She had been ignored for nearly an hour, and the records meant to protect her had been falsified. The hospital reacted quickly once the video went public. 6 employees were fired or suspended. A nursing aide was criminally charged with falsifying records. 2 doctors and 2 nurses were investigated for potential charges. But for Esmin's family, it wasn't enough. Her daughter Tia Harrison told reporters, "She was the light to us. She had a strength that drew everyone to her, and she didn't deserve to die like this." Esmin's family filed a $25 million lawsuit against New York City's Health and Hospitals Corporation, which ran Kings County. Their attorney said, had she been examined and treated, she may very well have lived. She could have been given anticoagulation drugs, compression stockings, and told to walk around. Instead, she was ignored. In May 2009, the case was settled. The family received $2 million. But for them, justice was never about the money. It was about ensuring no one else would suffer Esmin's fate. The scandal forced major reforms at Kings County Hospital. Over 300 new staff were hired, including doctors, nurses, and behavioral health associates. New policies required patients to be checked every 15 minutes, with full nurse evaluations every hour. A rapid response team was established, available 24/7. Surveillance systems were upgraded, and staff were trained to respond to patients seen on camera. The psychiatric emergency ward was replaced with a new $153 million behavioral health pavilion. For 5 years, Kings County operated under federal monitoring to ensure compliance. The hospital that had once been nicknamed Killer County was forced to confront its failures. On July 3rd, 2008, Esmin Green's funeral was held in Brooklyn. All 132 seats of the church she loved, Jesus is Lord Sanctuary, were filled. Her family had flown in from Jamaica. Her friends and fellow worshipers wept as they remembered her as a loving mother, a faithful church member, and a woman who worked tirelessly to provide for others. But she had not died surrounded by loved ones. She had died alone on a cold hospital floor while staff looked away. The death of Esmin Green became a symbol of what happens when psychiatric patients are dehumanized, a symbol of how systemic neglect can turn a hospital into a place of danger. Her case highlighted 3 hard truths. Number 1, the stigma of mental illness often leaves patients treated as less than human. Number 2, Black patients, especially women, face disproportionate neglect and dismissal in medical settings. Number 3, underfunded psychiatric care creates conditions where tragedies like this become almost inevitable. For many, Esmin's death recalled past betrayals in American medicine, from the Tuskegee syphilis study to countless cases of neglect in psychiatric wards. And though reforms were made, her story remains a warning that the vulnerable are still at risk when systems fail. Esmin Green was left to die in full view of those sworn to protect her. And if not for a surveillance camera, her death might have been covered up forever. If you believe stories like this must never be forgotten, subscribe to Medical Crime Files. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next case. And tell me in the comments, should hospital staff who falsify records face prison time? Because only when we confront these crimes openly can we demand the justice Esmin never received.